Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic. I've seen Avengers Age of Ultron twice now. I have a full written review up on my website if you don't want spoilers, so head to imyourtargetdemographic.com. But if you've seen the movie, or if you absolutely don't care about getting things spoiled for you, this is where you need to be. So let's start with general thoughts. I ended up giving the movie a 4 out of 5, which is still really good. But I didn't think that it lived up to what movies like the first Avengers or Captain America Winter Soldier or even Guardians of the Galaxy delivered. So I put those three movies kind of at the top. Age of Ultron was enjoyable. It was definitely more action-oriented. We got to see more of those moments of the team coming together, right? Like using their powers in conjunction. Like when Captain America put his shield up and Thor like hit it and it like did that like shockwave. Like there were cool moments like that we didn't really get a lot of in Avengers 1. So we really got to see them as a team, which was really cool. But it started off on a weird note to me. The first scene where they're kind of attacking the base in Sokovia, the effects were a little jarring to me. Like it was cool, but it didn't look real. It didn't look polished. Like I remember seeing Thor like fly around and he's kicking people and it just looked kind of off. And something was off about the sound. Like it was too quiet. Something was weird in the mix where it felt like I was distanced as opposed to feeling it. You know, later in the movie there's moments where the theater shakes. And at the beginning it felt a little muted. So it made it a little awkward to jump into that experience. But this is a spoiler talk, so let's get to the stuff that really matters. Let's talk about the twins. So Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver I thought were really cool. I didn't mind the accents at all. I thought it gave the cast a more international feel. You know, really it's not supposed to be just an American team, it's supposed to be an international team. So it worked for me. Scarlet Witch was super cool at the beginning, right? She was like doing that kind of ring thing where it was like kind of they put her in fast motion and it's kind of weird. I thought that was super cool, and then she never did it again. So I felt that was kind of a missed opportunity. There could have been a cool moment of her doing that fighting the Ultron bots, you know, like that could have been really cool, but they didn't really go back to that again. But I thought she was well done. They can't do it the way that they do her in the comic books. Like they can't just explain like, well, it's chaos magic and she alters reality. Like that's a little too much for where the MCU is at right now. So I thought they did a decent job of kind of taking a couple things that she can do and introducing those, and then maybe it opens up later into more things that, you know, she can do. So I thought it worked. I thought it gave a different way to fight. You know, like so far everyone hits or shoots. And it's just a lot of bashing. That's all the Avengers do. But her, with her ability to move things and like kind of, you know, just like break people into, you know, she'd break the bots into like a little clump and then throw them. Like it just gave a new variety to the fight scenes that I really appreciated. And then Quicksilver. I thought Quicksilver was really cool. I thought he was dark and stubborn and serious, which is the way Quicksilver is kind of meant to be. Obviously, he's not as fun as the Quicksilver from Days of Future Past. That scene in X-Men where he runs, you know, through that lobby and like is stopping bullets, that's an amazing scene. But that is not Quicksilver. Quicksilver is fast, but he's not godlike. Okay? Like he can't just like do whatever he wants. Like that would be way too powerful. And that's why in Days of Future Past they didn't let him go on the kind of final last mission, because they knew Quicksilver's there, we could do anything we want. So they had to kind of cut him off. So I appreciated this Quicksilver, that he was fast, but he wasn't unstoppable. You know, they found unique ways to stop him. Like when he tried to grab the hammer and it like took him flying. I thought that was a really funny moment. And then he bites the bullet. And I expected that someone would die, but I didn't think it would be one of the new characters because I thought they'd be locked in for, you know, 8 more movies or whatever. But I'm okay with how things happened because it meant something, right? Like, the whole movie was building up Hawkeye. And you thought, knowing Joss Whedon and how he gets you to love a character and then he kills them, I was almost certain that Hawkeye was going to bite it. Even though he's come out and said, like, oh yeah, I'm doing Captain America 3, like, that could be a red herring. So I was like, oh, is Hawkeye gonna get it? And so when Quicksilver saved him, it not only spun what we thought was going to happen, but it made that sacrifice meaningful, right? That he protected Hawkeye, he protected that kid. It showed that they truly did change their colors, right? That they were trying to be heroic. And people in the audience had an audible, like, right? Because even though he was a brand new character, they still got to care about him enough that that death mattered. So it's a bummer that we won't see Quicksilver anymore, but I'm okay with how that happened. Then our third new character that we didn't really see hardly anything of before the movie came out was Vision. And Vision was hands down my favorite. Like, when I left the theater, there's certain moments you're thinking about. There's certain characters that you're like, oh, that was so cool, right? Like that little kid inside of you is just like, I want to dress up and I want to buy figures. And, like, that was Vision for me. I walked out of the theater and I was thinking, like, oh, do you remember when Vision, like, shot the thing out of the mind gem? Or, like, do you remember when, like, Vision lifted the hammer? Like, that was, like, the coolest moment of the movie. And Vision, even though he doesn't have a lot of screen time, like, he made an impact, and I'm super excited about both Paul Bettany and what they can do with that character of the Vision in future movies. Because Vision is a strange character, right? It's like an android, but he, like, falls in love, and, like, he has, like, powers that are kind of hard to describe. But they kept all of it, which is bold, right? That you see Vision and he's shooting the gem, and then he, like, reaches through robots and, like, pulls them apart. Like, I never would have thought that in this movie they would have kept that aspect, that Vision can, like, go through objects and things. That seemed a little complicated. I was like, they probably won't do that. But they did. And it was awesome. And so I'm really excited for the future of the Vision. And if you know anything from the comic books, the future of Vision and Scarlet Witch could be really awesome. So now let's talk Ultron, the villain of the movie. I had high expectations because James Spader's voice in the trailers that had come out led me to believe that Ultron was going to be this massive force of destruction. And instead, we kind of got this, like, witty, kind of, like, humoristic kind of guy, and it was kind of strange. And while I laughed because it was funny, I wish that they'd taken a more serious tone with the villain, because I think Ultron, in his desire to destroy all mankind, could have been a really dominant villain. But it's hard to be scared when he's, like, cracking jokes and, like I thought it was funny, but I think they could have played a stronger villain by making him more serious. And visually, I thought he looked cool, but I didn't like the human face. Like, there were, like, his mouth was moving and it was kind of silly, and I was like there were just parts of it that I thought were weird choices. I wanted Ultron to be kind of the biggest, baddest villain ever, and I was a little disappointed by that. So I wouldn't say he ranks up there with, like, Loki or Kingpin from Daredevil was really well done, or even the Winter Soldier I thought was a really dominant villain, right? Because he didn't say a lot and he got stuff done. It was like, when he appeared on screen in Winter Soldier, you knew, like, oh crap. Where when Ultron shows up, you're like, oh, he's going to do some witty banter. Just didn't feel that threatening to me. And I feel like in a movie where it's supposed to be worldwide, extinction, I wanted to feel that threat, and I didn't really feel it. Some other people have complaints that this movie kind of went on all these kind of little side tangents because they're setting up, all of Phase 3. So there was, like, the stuff in Wakanda with Andy Serkis playing Ulysses Klaue, and his arm gets cut off, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, that's clearly setting up Black Panther, because Ulysses Klaue is his kind of arch nemesis, and now we've been to Wakanda, and so when we go there again, it won't be as foreign. Right, they planted that seed. Or Thor's little journey that he goes on in, like, the water. Kind of, you're like, what is that? But it's setting up for Thor Ragnarok, right? He's seen this vision of kind of this apocalyptic future, and now we're going to see that happen. But I am glad that Thor kind of had this realization or this vision about the Infinity Gems, or the Infinity Stones. Because until now, they had the cube, the Tesseract, and they didn't really know what it was. Right? In Guardians of the Galaxy, they were like, oh, I think this is Infinity Gem. Like, they had these things, but they weren't really connected. No one really knew the bigger picture of what was happening, so only we as an audience knew that Thanos is trying to collect them all. So it was nice to have Thor kind of tell everyone, like, hey, here's what's happening, here's what this is, something's going on, that now they can say the mind gem, and everyone knows what that means, instead of skirting around it. It's nice to have that out in the open and that they can now talk about the Infinity Gems, or Infinity Stones. So confusing that there's two terms. So it's nice that that's out in the open now. But it does mean that Vision at some point is going to get that thing ripped out of his head, which will probably kill him. So in Infinity War, we will probably have a heartfelt goodbye to the Vision, which is really a bummer, but we'll see what happens. And then there was some setup for the Civil War, right? So there's Ant-Man, which is about to come out, and then there's Captain America Civil War. So they had to set up this dichotomy of Iron Man and Captain America. And they were at a good place, where they were kind of bickering, they were fighting, and I thought it was clearly set up. But then the movie ends with them kind of like, oh yeah, we're besties, see you later, text me when you get home. They weren't in that place where they're ready to brawl. So that ending was a little strange. I wish they would have left on more separate paths, or on not as good of a note, because Civil War now has to get them to be upset with each other. But I think they did set up for Civil War with the Hulk fight that in Wakanda, because introducing Black Panther in Civil War, he just had a superhero that was out of control destroy most of his city. So he's clearly going to be pro-registration, that we need to know what these people can do and we need to be able to control them. All right, so Black Panther's clearly going to be with Iron Man to say we can't let problems like that happen. They also set up for Civil War with the new Avengers, right? So the movie ends with War Machine and Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Vision, and then Captain America and Black Widow. So that, during Civil War, those will be the Avengers. But I don't know if all of them are going to stay with Captain America, because there's probably people on that team, and I'll talk about this soon because I have a really cool video idea. There's probably people on that team that oppose, or that are pro-registration, that say, yes, people are crazy and superheroes can't just be running around, we need to control them. Most notably, I think War Machine is going to go with Tony Stark, because he's kind of from the government, he understands that there needs to be regulations and oversight, so I think maybe the new Avengers team is going to get ripped up again, kind of split down the middle during Civil War. But I kind of thought that new team was cool. A lot of people were like, I wouldn't go see an Avengers movie with that team, but I would. Because remember, before Avengers Age of Ultron, Hawkeye wasn't that cool, right? You didn't really root for him, you didn't care about him, but in the span of one movie, they made you care, right? So they give them some depth, they give them some character, and it worked. So I think if there was a film that focused on this Avengers team, we would see them and get some depth. Right? Like, I think they did a good job with Falcon and Winter Soldier, that they don't need to do much more to make him relatable and you to care about him. Same thing with War Machine, maybe give him a substantial storyline that is a little more serious. We already got to know Vision and Scarlet Witch, they can have a little subplot. I think there's potential for that team to be really cool, and so I think in Civil War we'll see just the tip of that, and maybe into Infinity War. But I feel like in Infinity War we're going to have everyone back at the table, so who's an Avenger and who's not doesn't really matter. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to see the movie again. Even though I had a lot of criticism, I still enjoyed it immensely. It's fun. It reminds you of all the comic books you read as a kid. It reminds you of what the cartoons were like. They were able to really take that action and put it on screen. But I think it just had such high expectations, such high standards to match, that it didn't necessarily do that. But should you see it? Yes, of course. And I will see it multiple times. So those are my thoughts. Make sure you head over to our official Facebook page at facebook.com/IAYTD. Give us a like and keep in touch here, because I have a really cool video focusing on all the characters in the MCU and where I think they're going to play out in the Civil War. That video will be coming up probably next week. So in the meantime, let me know in the comments below, what were your thoughts on Age of Ultron? Were you disappointed? Did you love it? Who's your favorite? Spoilers galore down there, so don't go in the comments unless you have seen the movie. So spoil everything. Talk about everything. We'll see you later.